What is up, internets? Welcome to Self-Defense from All Angles, the podcast where we try to break the echo chamber around self-defense and self-protection. I'm your host, Randy King, speaker on all things proactive skills and owner and operator of 80/20 conflict management strategies. This week, we have on the show Armin. He is a German self-protection specialist, and he's one of the stops on the RandRory tour that is happening here in September. We talk about a whole bunch of really interesting topics. Number one is the difference between self-protection and self-defense when it comes to other languages other than English, and also maybe me shifting to talking more about self-protection and less about self-defense. He also talks about structure in a very classical way, and we go over the benefits of structure in the physical response to violence, as well, of course, we talk a little bit about the tour. And one of the most fascinating parts, I think, of the conversation is our discussion on normal versus abnormal and how he doesn't think that when people come to a class that they don't need to learn about the normal side of self-defense because people already know what normal looks like. We have a little bit of a difference of opinion, but check this episode out. And don't forget, if you're looking for a speaker to talk on proactive self-protection skills or someone to come into your workplace and help train your staff on the realities of workplace violence, don't forget to get a hold of us at 8020cms.com. Now let's get on to the show. What is up, internets? Randy here with Armin from Germany. We have him on the show because he's one of the stops we're going to be doing on our big European tour with myself and Rory Miller. Also, Armin's been in this industry for a long time, so we always are trying to hear different opinions from different cultures and different people on this show because I believe that self-defense has become a little bit of an echo chamber and everybody's kind of saying the same thing. So as many different views as we can get as possible, that is always better in my opinion. So Armin, welcome to the show. And why don't you tell the people a little bit about yourself?
I'm 45 years old. I live with my family in a very rural part of Germany, so it's quite nice here. I teach self-defense for about 10 years now, but I'm a long-time martial artist, and where the stuff comes together for me is I'm not only teaching martial arts and self-defense, I'm also teaching stuff about nature. I'm working for a wildlife park, and so I'm working with groups of people, of students, and all of that. So most stuff I do is teaching.
That's awesome. We always start the show off with a question. What is your definition of self-defense? Because the definition of self-defense is different pretty much everywhere. So what is your personal definition of it?
I have two definitions, not for self-defense, but for me there's a difference between self-defense and self-protection. So self-defense is for me personal, the physical part of self-protection. And so I always say I teach self-protection, where I can put everything that keeps me safe in my everyday life. So all the soft skills go into self-protection, and self-defense for me personally, it's just one part of the whole package.
So your differentiation between self-defense and self-protection is self-defense isn't necessarily self-protection, and self-protection is a larger scope?
Yeah. In Germany, we have different terms for the legal part and the actions and all that stuff. So our definitions are a little bit different. In your country, self-defense is what you do, and it's a legal term. In Germany, we have this separated. So it's a little bit more complex here. So self-protection is a third thing that makes it a big package.
As a trainer, you wouldn't say you teach self-defense because the difference is in the legal system there. You would say you teach self-protection. That would be a very clear distinction.
For me, it is, because if I teach self-protection, I can teach to leave, to not be there, and hard to sell this to people if they think about self-defense. Because defending for most people means there is an attack, and then I defend myself, and then I'm already too far in something that could have been prevented in most cases. Better to distinguish this in the word today, self-protection. And the other thing is, in Germany, it's not the legal term, it's Notwehr, and not every form of self-defense is Notwehr. So I can defend myself, but I can get legal trouble with that.
Right.
And some people don't get this. So if you teach self-protection, you can tell the people you don't have to wait till you get attacked. You don't have to defend yourself. You can protect yourself
Interesting. So self-defense to you is the act of it already happening. So they're already engaged in some kind of fight or situation where self-protection includes the proactive or the preemptive skills.
Yeah.
That's a great definition. What is something you wish people knew more about when it came to self-protection? Like what are some of the areas where you feel people are lacking?
Everything about prevention and leaving. Work a lot with martial artists and people from the self-defense scene, Krav Maga people and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of those don't think about running away a lot. So they talk about this, but don't think about it, don't think about doing it. So I think there is all this ego stuff that goes in there. I think there should be much more talk about running away, about tactical apologies and stuff like that.
Right. You were mentioning earlier that you teach self-defense, you teach martial arts. But you're also teaching people about like the outside world. Do you include survivalist type stuff, or do you include that in your self-defense teachings or self-protection teachings rather?
I do this in my other stuff because I'm working in the wildlife park. We have a platform for doing survival stuff. We have a platform for working in nature and talking about skills you use for survival.
That makes sense. What would be like a total self-protection package to you? Like what would you show people in your courses? Going through it, like what are the things you focus on?
I like to do a lot about awareness and recognizing what is normal, what is not normal, doing little games you can do in your everyday life, like Predator Day. It's one of Rory's ideas, I think. Stuff like that. I like doing awareness games, and yeah, surely I do physical self-defense, but I would say maximum of 30%. So a lot of de-escalation, a lot of prevention, violence dynamics, for the most part.
That's fair. So let's walk that out. I use the same saying, which is you need to understand what's normal to understand what's abnormal. How would you go about showing a group of people what normal is supposed to look like?
I guess most people know what normal looks like.
We would hope.
They don't know what not normal looks like, and
right.
That's sometimes the trouble. If you know normal, but nobody tells you that the other stuff isn't normal. Mm-hmm. So I guess it's easy to do a little role playing and show what's not normal. And right. For me, this works. And people got the feeling that, yeah, no, that's not normal. You can recognize it as soon as they have seen it, but you just have to tell them to look for it.
Do you feel, I don't know what kind of clients you work with, do you feel you're spending more time teaching people to look for abnormal, or are you teaching people what normal is supposed to look like because they're already living in the abnormal part of this?
Telling people to look what's abnormal is normally enough, I think.
Right, okay.
There are some people that live in some special environments so that they don't get it anymore, I think. So I think those people, it's a little more work, a little more talk, but most normal people and normal environments don't need this, I think.
It seems to me normal is becoming more and more subjective as we go forward with like exploring other people's lives, right? So normal for a person growing up in a drug house would definitely be different than normal of somebody growing up in the country. So a great example, my daughter, she has two very different lives. She lives with her mother in a small town outside of the city I live in. And then she lives with me the other half of the time in a city of 1 million people. So there's two very different baselines of normal in those situations. How do you teach people about looking for baselines? Do you look for that kind of stuff, or does that even approach like what you do?
I don't do this so much because, well, people don't stay in their environment their whole life. So,
right.
Or I hope they don't. Some do, but then people travel and move. So I think they have to work where they get. And I don't think it's too bad to have a different baseline, even a higher baseline. Is it higher, or even if you're in an environment like we are here in our rural German little village? Oh, my wife, she goes outside, and she's not a martial artist. She doesn't do self-defense, but she's reading everything I'm writing, and so she has a huge theoretical background, and that's almost enough because she goes outside and she sees something that looks unnormal, even here in our environment, and she switches the mindset
Right.
It's like, okay, that's suspicious. And you kind of see that. She has her hands in her pocket, but she's clenching fists in the pocket, and whole body language changes, and this works.
Right.
Maybe not necessary here. Yes, it's not necessary, but it works here, and it will work in most other environmentals unless you go to some very fucked up place.
I agree with you. I think like we call them proactive skills, also known as soft skills. Those proactive skills they're so functionally important. I work with so many different types of people, and a lot of people that exist in bad areas or have gone through trauma. And those preemptive, those proactive skills, those soft skills, as we like to call them, they are the things that separate you getting into trouble or not getting into trouble, right? Being selected as a potential victim, being chosen, all those things, like just paying attention to your environment and knowing how to communicate. I think it's huge. And like you said, with your wife, taking her hands out of her pocket, that is such a clear body language sign that she is getting ready for something potentially bad to happen, that if somebody did select her, they might not choose her because she is too aware.
Yeah.
Right? And I think that's super important you teach that.
Yeah, the problem is if you don't notice if nothing happens.
Right.
So bad conditioning, but if you do it naturally, you don't have to care.
That's a good way to phrase it, because I'm always talking about that. So I say that self-defense, we say self-defense or self-protection, because your definition is really good. Self-protection is closer to safety training than it is the martial arts, because in safety training, the incident isn't when a barrel falls on you, here's what to do. It's to avoid it in general, right? So the goal is no incident happens. And that's what you're saying, right? It's hard to justify, right? Like, oh, you did all these things so nothing bad happened, because with a martial arts mindset, we have to think that, oh, I have to prove myself in some way. And I think that's what martial arts does differently than a self-defense or a self-protection mindset. Is martial arts is when it happens, look at what I did, as opposed to self-defense being, oh, nothing happened. That was the goal.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, very, very tough to justify. So you say you teach martial arts. What martial arts do you teach?
I teach in a hybrid system about karate, kung fu system.
Oh, cool. Okay.
And I teach traditional Tai Chi Chuan.
That's awesome. So Tai Chi, I think, is one of the more made fun of arts, which I don't think it should be, but I think a lot of people do pick on it because they see old people in the park. But actually, a friend of mine in Germany as well, Marcus Lind, he does Tai Chi as well. You might know Marcus. So. Yeah, I know him. Oh, do you? Okay, awesome. So yeah, he was showing me some of the stuff when I was there my first time in Germany. Marcus was the first person that brought myself to Germany. He was showing me some Tai Chi, and it's super functional. My thought on this, and then I would like to hear your take. My thought on this is all the arts that people make fun of, they think that don't function. They function very well if you already know how to kind of do the basics. If you know how to box and wrestle and ground fight, then you can add Aikido, Tai Chi, these other things to it, and that can enhance your self-protection. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, and for me, in the Tai Chi is really, really good body mechanics. Like that's the best structure you can find for me in any other system. In any system, I don't know another system where you have such good structure as in Tai Chi. So there are stuff you can. I do it the other way around. If you have good basics in another style, you can add your Tai Chi, but I do it the other way around. I can use the basics, the body mechanics, the structure from my Tai Chi or my other styles to improve these.
You say Tai Chi you're doing Tai Chi as a base. That's where you're gonna load all your stuff onto the base of Tai Chi, as opposed to loading Tai Chi on top of an existing base.
Yeah, because I couldn't fight with my Tai Chi even if my life would depend on it. But
right.
I can use the stuff from my Tai Chi to make my other stuff better, to get a better power generation, to get a better stance and whatever, better movement.
That's super cool. Like, this is the cool thing about being a martial arts guy and being a very outspoken martial arts guy as I am, is that getting humbled when you go somewhere like, oh, that doesn't work. And then they make it work really well. And you're like, oh, I should maybe shut up and learn. You mentioned structure. The point of this show, this is like a base level intro to self-defense and violence. Can you explain to the listeners what structure is and why people should be seeking it?
My Tai Chi teacher always said it's like the body is like a house, and if you want to stand and be strong, you, like in a house, you have a shell on the outside.
Yep.
We have the stones on the inside, and we have meat and flesh on the outside and bones on the inside. And he always said it's like a house. You can't hold the house up with the shell outside. you have to hold it up with the bones, with the stones.
Right.
And the body is the same thing. I can't hold my body just with muscles. So I have to align my structure, my bones. I have to use my bones to stand and to be strong. So that's a short version of why to use structure. Use your bones and not your muscles to hold yourself up.
It's interesting because structure is, I would argue, subtly in almost everything, but it's really explored in Chinese and Japanese arts. So my biggest base is Filipino martial arts. And while we don't talk about structure, it's kind of implied, right? Through transfer, etc. And I think it's a lost aspect for a lot of people. Like if you have good structure, everything else works better. I remember working with a karate guy. He did Kyokushin. And he hit so hard. And I've been Thai boxing and I'm not a small fella. I can hit pretty hard. I've been doing it my whole life. And he hit me once so hard, like it felt like I was going to poop out my skeleton. Like it was such a hard hit that I didn't know what to deal with. And I couldn't understand what the difference was. And the difference was structure. He just knew how to root. He knew how to throw. He knew how to line everything up. So there was almost no bleed of power coming out of his technique. How important is that, do you think, in a self-defense situation?
I guess not so much.
Sure.
Because, like I said before, running away, I don't need much structure.
Right.
But if you want to hit, and you want to hit hard, it depends. So if I'm a woman and I'm attacked by a mugger, I guess as long as I have to fight, it might be enough just to fight without hitting hard. So just to show I'm not the victim. But if a guy like, okay, I'm not on the victim list for most bad guys.
Right.
So if I'm in a self-defense situation, I guess I have to hit hard.
Right.
That's my baseline. Okay, if I'm in a self-defense situation, I have to hit hard. If I have to defend myself, not someone else.
Right.
So for me, I think a good structure is important. That's what I need to hit hard. I'm a thin guy, I'm not broad with big muscles, so I have to have good structure because I don't have much muscle power.
Right.
And for self-defense, I think it's important, but because most people really need it, more like me, thin, not so strong. And big, strong guys don't have self-defense situations most times. They have fighting situations. So people who need self-defense are most times people who need the structure.
If I understand what you're saying, and I think I do, you're very clear, your English is awesome, is structure can help level the playing field with that extra size and strength that somebody's going to be using against you in a self-defense situation.
Yeah, that's what I have to do in my martial arts training, and
right.
Not in my Tai Chi class, in the other class, because I wouldn't say I'm old, but I'm not in my 20s anymore. So if I fight with young, strong guys, I have to have better bottom mechanics. And if I don't have this, it's not ending well for me. So that's what's happening in my training. Playing with the guys, and they are strong, they are fast, they're young, and I have to use technique. And then they say, "How did you do that?" Okay, I'll do this from now on. And the next time I have to invent something new. No, it's sure I want them to get better, but showing them the tricks from the old man when you're young, that's cool, I think.
Yeah, that makes total sense. And like we're all on that path of getting slower and weaker, right? Well, you don't have to do it, but it's just part of it, right? We lose testosterone. It's all things that happen when we get older. So knowing structure and knowing those, like you said, those old man tricks, quote unquote, I'm doing air quotes for the audio, doing the old man tricks are going to be beneficial because it can keep you in the game much longer, right? It can keep you smart and you burn less energy. I always make fun of this. There's like, there's this host of like 60-year-old boxing coaches that keep just tuning up 18-year-old kids. And these kids are like, why? And the old guy's like, because I know when to use energy and when not to use energy, right? And if you do Western boxing enough, eventually, in my experience, your boxing coach starts sounding like a Tai Chi teacher. They're like, you got to root this back leg. You got to put your weight here. And when I was in Germany doing Tai Chi, that's where I've done it, the Tai Chi coach was saying the same things my boxing coach was saying here in a different way through a different method. But movement is movement is movement, and good tactics are going to be good tactics across the board. So I'm paraphrasing what you're saying, but structure helps you with the longevity of your physical protection.
Yeah.
And I think people do need to pay a lot more attention to it. Like I said, it was a kind of a foreign concept to me because all the people I hang out with are Japanese martial artists now. It's like the whole crew all of a sudden. So they're like all about structure and this and that. And I think it does make a huge difference. Going forward then, before we talk about the tour, you've been doing this for a while. What kind of clients or what kind of people do you find mostly gravitate towards your teaching? Like, are you getting a lot of young men, it sounds like? Are you getting women? Who do you work best with?
Okay, this depends because in my martial arts
Sure.
classes, I'm not a family guy.
Right.
I have couples with kids, families,
Sure.
or pairs. And my self-defense classes, since I told you I'm living in rural Germany, I don't give self-defense classes here because I won't get any clients here. Nobody here thinks you need this. So what I do when teaching self-defense is I teach self-defense instructors to be better instructors. So what I get is self-defense instructors that think they need more theoretical background.
Right.
And that's my client.
That makes sense. That kind of leads us to the next part of this is you are bringing myself and Rory Miller to Germany for one of the stops on our tour. So yeah. Thank you, by the way. That's awesome. I greatly appreciate it. I've always, like I said, we were saying before the show, maybe I said it on the show, I forget. It's all blends to me. But I haven't met you in person. I've heard lots of great things about you. I know you've hosted Rory multiple times. Like you're his guy in Germany when it comes to this. So what made you bring Rory out the first time? What was why did you decide to do that?
Well, my martial arts training came to a point where I was not happy. And it was not satisfying, so I wanted something about self-defense. I found meditations on violence. I asked for my wife to buy it for me as a Christmas present, and I bought it and then I read it. And it was so fantastic. It was like, this is what I always was looking for. And I thought, I have to train with this guy. And in this year, my wife was pregnant and couldn't afford to travel to the United States. So I thought, okay, what do I do? Okay, I write an email to this guy and ask him if he's come to Germany.
Sure.
Well, he's like, yes.
And he obviously came. You have a good relationship with him now.
Yeah, I hope so.
It's awesome. He's definitely like one of the best out there. I'm very happy he works with me as much as he does. It's so great. That's the same way I got in touch with him too. Pretty much same thing, right? Read Meditation on Violence. Oh my God, this is what I should be teaching. This is way better than what I was doing. This mirrors my life as a force professional, as a bouncer, way more than martial arts training did. So I wanted to get a hold of this guy. I went down to Minneapolis and we, went from there.
You're coming to Fritzlar?
Yep.
So it's a small town, medieval town. You could make holiday here if you wouldn't have to work. So nice place. If somebody wants to come here and bring a family, they will have a nice time here. Really beautiful, and we're in the center of Germany, very much in the middle.
Right.
Only trouble is we don't have so much growth going here. So Marcus, your Tai Chi guy, said, why are you on the ass of the world there? I said, no, we ain't. We're in the middle of Germany. And that, yeah, but not that useful if there's no road going there. But there are roads going here, so there are some autobahns that lead near us. Like I said, it's really beautiful. And everybody that wants to join from Western Europe, Netherlands, France, Belgium, they're welcome. They're the closest they can get.
That's awesome. I don't know how Marcus can speak. He's in Gummersbach, which is not like a metropolis by any stretch of the imagination. Yeah, so we're coming out there. What are we doing for your stop? I think we're doing the Dirty Dirty weekend.
Yes.
And then we're also doing, all right, so we're doing boundary setting for the Friday night. And then we're doing the Dirty Dirty, the seminar, right? So this is super cool, everybody listening. The Dirty Dirty seminar is the most martial artsy myself and Rory get. So boundary setting, you've probably taken my course if you're listening to my podcast, or if you haven't, grab it. Discount codes exist. We're talking about boundary setting for short term, which is in the self-defense space, not long term, which is the second half of the course. We're doing that the Friday night. And then we're doing Dirty Dirty, which is my dirty boxing curriculum, because I'm a striker, combined with Rory's dirty judo. Now, the really cool thing about this, if you're in the area, is this is the second time we're doing this. So we did this last year in the US, and we really refined the program to the point where we were super excited to bring this to everybody else. So the European tour is getting the polished version of this seminar, not the one that we did in the US that was not, let's say, not polished. It wasn't quite 100% where we wanted it. The dates were there, Armin.
10th and 11th of September.
You are our first stop, 9th, 10th, 11th, the Friday for the boundaries, 10th, 11th. And do you have a space there, like a school, or are you just renting a spot?
We'll have sport hall, school hall.
Perfect. That's awesome. I'm really excited to come. I've never been there before. You have a Facebook group and events. I'm going to put it here in the show notes so people can click. So if you're wherever you're listening to this or watching this, if you're on YouTube, in the show notes, we're going to have a direct line for you to sign up because we'd like this to be super successful. Obviously, he's bringing in one like superly well-known guy and then myself, but this isn't free. This is our job. So we really want to make sure the host is making as much as possible as well. So if you're in the area, come. It'd be awesome to see you and meet you. Some people in Germany, because again, Fritzlar, right? People are like, what? Why would I go there? Like, you're going to go there for us. We're the destination. Armin's great. Come check it out. It'll be good and fun. And I'm really excited to see everybody. This will be my third time teaching in Germany. Always interesting experience. It's going to be great. So like you said, Armin, you're super central. So people can come from pretty much everywhere to come train. Netherlands, for example, like you mentioned, we don't have a stop there. So in the Netherlands, this might be the closest stop to you. All right, everyone, we're going to end the podcast here. We're going to let Armin promote his stuff, of course. And then we're going to go to the one-up story that's only on Patreon, patreon.com/RandyKingLive. The one-up story is the story you tell at the table to be the coolest person at the table. Pretty much what's your best story. All of that and every other podcast that I've ever done exists on that $5 level. So if you want to hear Old Talking to Savages, if you want to hear Devil's Advocate podcast, they all exist there with extra content. Armin's going to tell us a story there. And again, we're doing a European tour. Armin is one of the stops. We're doing like 12 different stops in 5, maybe 6 different countries. So come check us out if you're in the area. Armin stop especially. Get there. Come see Fritzlar. It's apparently beautiful. We'll go there. Armin, why don't you tell the people where they can find you?
Yes, if I tell this in English,
sure.
It's hard to find. What can we write this? Is not enough.
Right.
Like Selbstschutztraining-hutter.de.
I don't know what that means, but I do have it linked in the show. So it's already there if you want to get to it. Can you say it one more time for us?
Selbstschutztraining-hutter.de.
Is there a loose English translation for that?
The translation is self-protection training hutter.
Awesome.
That's my name. So self-protection training and my name.
Direct and to the point. I love it. That's a great name. So check it out. Obviously, give him a follow, Instagram, all that stuff. If you follow me, you should be following all these super cool people. Remember, the point of me and my show is there's lots of different views on this stuff. We need more people talking about it. Go watch, go listen, go follow. Armin mentioned he's writing stuff. I don't know if that's public, but check out everything. Learn as much as you can on this. Create your own thought process. All right, that's it for the show. Armin, thank you so much for your time. I greatly appreciate it. We are jumping over to Patreon. We'll see everybody there.